It is Oregon week, and the Buffs are starting Pac-12 play, the final Pac-12 slate for the Colorado Buffaloes, and why not start off with one of the best teams in the conference, right? You go in one of the toughest environments, go to Eugene. It doesn't start easy for this team, does it? You start at Eugene, then you come here to face USC. So not a easy start for this team, but why not jump in?
No, it's a team that embarrassed Colorado pretty badly here behind us on this field, and obviously Colorado's completely transformed their program, so it should look a whole lot different out there at Autzen Stadium this year. But, I mean, Kenny Dillingham was Oregon's OC last year, and he was just kind of messing with CU, some of the trick plays they were doing, stuff that he felt that they couldn't run against a team that was well coached. And so that is just like extra turning the knife into that 2022 Colorado season. But Bo Nix is a heck of a quarterback, and he was in the Heisman discussion last year until he got hurt late in the season. But, this being the first game of the last season of Pac-12 play, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Colorado had to do what they did going back to the Big 12, and we've seen the dominoes continue to fall since then. And so obviously that was the right decision, but it's kind of sad that this is the last trip out to Eugene, and I'm going to miss going to a lot of these Pac-12 road environments, and so I'm going to try to soak in Autzen Stadium because it really is one of the cooler places in the Pac-12 to watch a football game.
Yeah, it is, and I think this place when it's full, probably Utah, Washington, and then probably Autzen Stadium. I mean that's probably where I'd rank the top four. I don't know if it's in that order, but that's where I'd rank the top four, and that place is awesome, and I think that they're going to be geared up for a top 20 matchup.
Yeah, and that is just from an entertainment standpoint, from beginning to end. They put on a good show there at Autzen Stadium. In terms of intimidating environments, I would throw Washington State in there, but that's not a great road trip for most fans because it's a pain to get to. But yeah, no, it should be a great matchup. And Bo Nix versus Shedeur Sanders. I think Bo Nix is completing 77% of his passes. What is Shedeur, like 78 or something like that? Yep. I mean, these are two of the best quarterbacks in the country, so everybody's in for a treat on Saturday.
Yeah, I think last year was Bo Nix versus JT Shrout, and so it's a little bit different this time. You also, one of the other things you mentioned, turning the knife, with Kenny Dillingham last year, but the other thing was that Christian Gonzalez, the former Buff, had a couple interceptions in that one. That one really turned the knife. And there's a former Buff corner on that team now with Nico Reed. Not as high profile as Christian Gonzalez, but he's going to want to try to make his mark. I don't see Shedeur Sanders throwing a couple picks in this one. I mean, we'll see, but Shedeur's been pretty on point.
Yeah, well, with Nico Reed, he was one of the few guys that wouldn't have gotten cut here. This staff would have found a role for him, and they could probably use him this week. This week. So he's a scrappy player. He's kind of part of that rotation, playing a lot of nickel back for them. So it's not quite as daunting as Christian Gonzalez, who we saw here for a couple of years, was about as elite as a cornerback at this level can get, but because he was playing in Colorado, not a lot of fans were paying attention to that. But this is going to be just a tough matchup all around. Now, Oregon they're not world beaters. We saw in week 2, Texas Tech had a second half lead against them in Lubbock, and Oregon had to come back and win that game. But Bo Nix, because he is so efficient and doesn't make mistakes, makes it really tough, because one of the reasons that Colorado was so successful in non-conference play is because they were so opportunistic, creating takeaways. Bo Nix is probably not going to give you that many opportunities to do that. So, but again, Colorado has been opportunistic, so they're going to challenge him. Maybe they get the first pick on Bo Nix this year.
Yeah, well, and Shedeur's been the same way, right? And even that one pick that he had the other night, I thought it was a great throw, and it kind of just went right through Jimmy Horn's hands and into the defender. So neither of these quarterbacks are going to, give up the ball very easily, and so that's what makes it intriguing. And both these teams in the top 20, Colorado number 19, Oregon number 10. The last time these two teams faced each other when they were both ranked was the Fiesta Bowl in 2001, when Joey Harrington, that whole game, nightmares for Buff fans in that one. But it's been a long time, so I'm excited for this one just to see. This is the first time a really good Colorado team is going to Eugene. Now, 2016 wound up being a really good team, but we didn't know it was a really good team. I think this is the first time we've been excited about what we think is a really good Colorado team going to Eugene.
Yeah, making that drive on 5 from Portland to Eugene on many of these trips, to your point, was, wow, this could get really ugly for Colorado. And outside of 2016, it did. We're not going to have that feeling driving to the stadium on Saturday. This should be a highly competitive game. I understand why Oregon is a fairly heavy favorite, but still the 21 points seems like a lot of points for this Colorado team that has proven a lot of people wrong early on this season. So I think it's going to be a lot more competitive than that. I think one of the key matchups is we've seen Juwan Mitchell improve every week as he's continued to grasp this defense. Well, defensively, they've struggled against the run in terms of just giving up yardage in non-conference play. Bucky Irving's one of the top backs in the Pac-12. Jordan James is a complimentary back up there that's really good. So that's a matchup that I see. If Colorado can limit them on the ground a little bit and force Bo Nix to have to take some chances, then I think they have a puncher's chance in this football game. But we'll get to our predictions in a minute. I don't know if I can quite predict CU to get the upset, but I do expect a game that goes into the fourth quarter still in doubt.
Yeah, and Juwan Mitchell, 15 tackles the other day. I mean, that was a great pickup for Colorado, and they need the linebackers to keep things in front of them this week. They can't have those big explosive plays. Charles Kelly talked about that. Too many yards they're giving up, but a lot of it is those explosive plays. They got to limit those, and Bo Nix is going to try to pick on a secondary that doesn't have Travis Hunter this week, and so who's going to be that other corner? Amarian Cooper has played well, but who's that other guy? Kendrick Breedlove, Will Carter Stoutmire be back? It doesn't sound like Carmani McLean's going to be in that mix, but is Travis Jay there? And so that's a matchup I'm going to look forward to is, how does CU handle this passing attack of Oregon? I think that's going to be key.
Yeah, and if McCaskill, as we mentioned in our midweek analysis video, is able to give that running backs group, which I still think I don't think we overblew the talent of that running backs group. I think it's a really talented group. I think the interior of Colorado's offensive line has to take on a dog mentality and get a little bit more of a push, because I think that's more of the issue than what the running backs are bringing to the table. But Alden McCaskill is a bigger back, and even when he was wearing that no contact jersey, he was trying in some of the behind the scenes video of trying to prove to the staff that I'm ready to go. So if he does get a chance out there in Eugene, I think he's going to be a man possessed out there. And that's another area that I would look forward to on Saturday.
Yeah, he's been a little amped up to go, I think. The other thing is, they've got to keep Shedeur clean, right? He's been sacked way too many times so far. And when you're getting sacked several times by Colorado State, Nebraska, even TCU got him, but now Oregon, they've got some guys that can get at you too, and so they've got to keep Shedeur clean to be able to hit some of those passes down the field. I'm not worried about the receivers without Travis Hunter, but you've got to keep Shedeur clean.
Yeah, and you just look at the number of times that Colorado's been sacked and how many sacks Colorado's defense has had. It's a lot of different pieces in terms of why that ratio is so skewed in a negative standpoint for Colorado right now. But that's another thing going into conference play. They got to figure a way to flip that. And if they can do that, we saw glimpses out of this secondary against Nebraska that they have the ability to be elite pass rushers. It just hasn't been there consistently. And then on the other side, to your point, you just can't have Shedeur hit as much as he has been so far this season.
Well, let's get into predictions. What do you think is going to happen out there?
Well, I kind of teased it already that I think this is going to be a close football game going into the fourth quarter. Colorado's been putting up points every week, and they've gotten off to some slow starts offensively. But at the end of the game, when you look at the scoreboard, they've been putting up those points. So I think that Colorado is going to be able to hang with Oregon for a while in this game. But there's just a few too many question marks with Colorado going into conference play right now, and it's not necessarily a lack of belief in Colorado. It's more of a respect for what Oregon's built up there and for the environment that they have at Autzen Stadium, and for predicting Colorado to stay in this game, I think is an optimistic view. But I get how some people are going to say that we're being haters for not picking them to win. I did kind of have the thought, Brian, after the TCU game, that I would just keep picking Colorado to win until they prove me otherwise. But Oregon is a tough matchup. And so I'm going to say Oregon wins this game. Give me them winning 45-42.
Okay. Wow, that's a close one. So I agree with you for the most part that I think this is going to be a competitive football game. I think Colorado is going to assert themselves way more than they did a year ago on this field, obviously. But I think Oregon, in that stadium and with an experienced offense that's run by Bo Nix, I think they're going to be able to put up some points. And this defense, the one thing about the Colorado defense, they've gotten some turnovers. but they've given up a ton of yards and a lot of points. And now you're facing a team that doesn't turn the ball over. And so if you don't get those turnovers, those drives turn into points. And I think that that's going to be a key. If Colorado doesn't get those turnovers, I think Oregon's going to kind of, I don't want to say run away with it, but my score might seem that way. But I'm going to pick Oregon 38-24. But I think it's a game into the fourth quarter and one that maybe Oregon tacks on a late touchdown to kind of salt it away. But I think that Colorado's going to assert themselves well. And I still think they're going to have a pretty good season, but you don't need to win out in Eugene for it to be a great season, right? I think that they can play a good game out there, come back here, and do well against USC next week. So I still think Colorado has set itself up for a really good year, but I think they start off conference play with a loss.
Didn't even mention, Travis Hunter not being in the mix is obviously another big part of.
Yeah.
I would imagine you as well picking Oregon to win this game because, as Shiloh Sanders has said it, we lost our best player on both sides of the ball.
Right.
And Coach Prime said that there's not a player in the country that could fill his shoes. So that's part of it as well. And it's just a bummer because I think going into those games, it's just a treat to watch Travis Hunter play the game of football. And the fact that the next 3 weeks that's taken away is kind of a bummer. But it should be a fun Saturday. It sounds like the weather is going to be nice. We haven't quite hit rainy season in Eugene. And it's a fun place to cover a football game. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. We'll see you out there.
Sounds good.